Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Up Zone where understanding politics is made simple. We are your three hosts.
Hey, good morning.
Uh oh. We got you, Ted?
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, good morning. Good morning. And then we've got Mr. Elmer Floyd, former House Representative for District 43 for the state of North Carolina.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. And then myself, Tisha Waddell, former City Council Representative for the 3rd District. I want to tell you guys a funny story. Well, it's funny, but it's not funny. I was invited to speak. I won't tell you where because I don't want to embarrass the organization, but I was invited to speak at a federal agency. And the invitation came by way of somebody that I know very well. And they were informed that their upline Googled me. And when their upline Googled me, they found that I'm doing air quotes. I need everybody to know I'm doing air quotes because if you can't see me, you can hear me. That I, air quote, had been arrested and convicted of vehicular homicide in 2021. Right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
right. So this person is like, no, she hasn't. Like, she was an elected official in 2021. And certainly, if that would have happened, it would have been plastered all over the news, right? And that it was alcohol related. And y'all, I don't know if y'all know this, but I don't even drink. So I I really let it go. But the thing that I think triggered me to actually have a response was because I don't really think I have to defend my character. But the thing that triggered me to have a response was that they persisted in this conversation with the person who invited me and told them that I needed to get ahead of this. And so my thing was, how do you get ahead of something that doesn't belong to you? So here's where this is what the situation was, you guys. My middle initial is S, right? I always use my middle initial. If you look right now at our screens, I have my middle initial there. I always use it. And I learned that from working on when I came on the council. I just thought it was so intriguing how other people would use their middle initial, and it was very definitive. My middle initial is S. This person who was arrested, I think in like Charlotte Mecklenburg, their middle initial is not S. So I said, if you're going to do a background screen, do a real background screen. Ask me for license for my social security card or not to go and Google, you're going to get what you get and it's not going to be right. So the moral of the story today is I am not that girl. I did not do that. So Mr. Floyd, have you and Ted ever Googled yourself to see who else comes up with your name?
Many times.
It's like it's very intriguing what's out there. You want to think
hmm
that your name's one in a million, but trust me, guys, somebody else has your name. But yeah, that's
hmm
my story for this morning. What's good with you guys? What's going on in your neck of the woods this morning, Ted?
Well, my Chicago Bulls won the first game last night, so I'm happy.
So are you still a Bulls fan? Like have the Bulls been popping since Michael Jordan stopped playing? Like what's up with the
No, they were in 10th place, and they got another game tomorrow just to get in. But
Well, congratulations on
I'm still a Bulls fan.
I know that's right. Once a fan, always a fan, right?
Oh yeah.
I remember. Look, y'all remember back when the teams to watch were Larry Bird with the Celtics, and then you had Michael Jordan with the Bulls, and Scottie Pippen, and then you had Magic Johnson, and
Yeah.
like those were the teams to watch. That was what
Yeah.
early '90s. Yeah,
hmm
we're
Yeah.
far removed from those days.
Y'all
Mr.
pretty
Floyd,
old.
who's pretty
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 old.
youngin' over
I
there, Mr.
remember all
Floyd?
that stuff.
We getting up there?
I'm gonna have to Google that.
Google it, sir. But make sure you when you put it in, make sure you're looking at the right people. How you doing this morning, Mr. Floyd?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
I rode by your neck of the woods yesterday and saw the most beautiful woman outside putting a really pretty yellow letter she shed yesterday. So you tell her they're hanging up that letter.
Praise the Lord.
Let's get into the nitty and the gritty and the word on the curb. We got a lot going on in the city and the state. The city of Fayetteville, Carolina. First and foremost, let's hot off the presses, pun intended. The Fayetteville Observer has shut down their printing press.
Mm-hmm.
How is this going to impact how we receive our news in Fayetteville?
Delay, delay, delay.
So we were already having, because we have to send the paper off to, what is it, like New York, we got to send the copy off to the parent company. They can do all of whatever they have to do. They already had to close out stories by like, is it like 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. So they had to close it out before news was even finished being made, because how we saw that happening at the council was council meetings weren't ending until 11:30. And so if you had
Mm-hmm.
a council meeting on a Monday that ended at 11:30, the news reporter could not, by nature of time in and of itself, get that off to New York by 8 p.m. So you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't see what happened on Monday until Wednesday, perhaps,
Right.
right?
Right.
So now, Mr.
Same thing
Floyd,
with sports. Yep.
right, right. So we were seeing impacting how we were receiving our news already because of that. So now, Mr. Floyd, you're saying more delays?
More delays. I don't care how you look at it. Things today are done electronically, but the hard print must arrive back to Fayetteville from Gastonia. Each day,
Yeah.
6 days a week, because we don't have a Saturday newspaper. And so we are going to get less printed news and a delay in the printing of the news for our community. So we'll be behind 2 to 3 days receiving local information as relates to community, to our community.
Now, Ted and Floyd, do you all prefer electronic media, or do you prefer a newspaper?
I went electronic probably 15 years ago because all I do is you throw it into your recycling bin.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Floyd?
Any way I can get it.
See, and I like a newspaper. Think the reason that I like a newspaper is because I like to be able to lay it out. I like to be able to go back to it and refer back to it. And I'm also one of those people who believes that when you remove something tangible, you remove the evidence of what's happening, because you cannot, if you send me a newspaper on Monday, you can't check what it says on Tuesday. But if you upload something into on the internet, you go back and edit on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5 years from now to make whatever you wanted to see. And I believe that this shift to digital media sets us up to really lose information. I really, I know that we have all this access and abundance of information, but there's something about having a hard copy of a newspaper that you just can't beat. You just can't beat it.
Well,
So
electronically, teach. Don't forget now. Just like some of our papers give you the headline, and then it has down there, once you click on the headline, do you want to subscribe? So they want you to purchase their newspaper if you want to get the full story. So it's not just
absolutely.
free, you know.
You
But
can't just buy, like how you can go and buy one newspaper. You can't just buy one story. You have to subscribe for a monthly subscription or an annual subscription. So it's a lot of moving parts to that. The other sad thing about the press club, to me, this is the most crucial aspect, is that 30 people are going to lose their jobs, you guys. So there are
Mm-hmm.
30 people who have been responsible for maintaining the press, people who run the press. They're going to lose their job. So what does this mean for them economically in this uncertain time of inflation that we see going?
Well, I'm hoping the parent company, gave them a stipend, like some companies do for, 3 months, 6 months, or something. Because most of those people working in the press have been there for many, many, many years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely are grieving the loss of our had to grieve the loss of our hometown newspaper. We'll see in the quality of news. Now we're grieving the loss of our hometown printing press. What do you guys think is going to happen with that building? Like, because that's a pretty substantial operation over there. So is that going to be another empty commercial building that's just going to rot? Or do you think people will be proactive and make a co-working space. What do you think we're going to see happen over there?
Ooh, I haven't heard anything right now.
Well, they said that, I believe sometime back that it was police, if I'm not mistaken, that they mentioned I mean that their facility for police. I don't know how it is broken, how the lease will be broken, but the at one point in time you walk in there and the newspaper was crowded with reporters. Uh, there, then it started to decline. I happened to look at the Fayetteville Observer in the Dollar Tree Sunday, and it was unique.
Yeah, because remember
That
the Sunday paper used to be this thick. It used to be like you got that Sunday paper, you would get lines, you were, and it starts and you just all manner of. You said looked a little bit this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was in the Saturday paper. So
Fortunate.
we, we have lost a good communicating mechanism for our people.
Yeah, that's really sad. I'm sad to hear that. But I will say that there is something else that's going on that really has me excited. Is this conversation about how the public hearing went for 4-year terms. Now, listen, Ted, you called it. You called it. You said, and I just need everybody to know, Ted, you are our day guru for a reason. You said to the people when you first broke this story on your Facebook page, you said Derek Thompson said that he could pack this, again, air quotes, because this is what he said, courtroom out with over 100 people from his district who would be in favor of 4-year terms. And he wanted the city council to just implement the 4-year terms without taking it to a referendum. And why did he say he wanted to do that, Ted? Because what?
Well,
He
yeah,
didn't
he
want a
said
referendum because
they didn't.
We don't.
They don't have to.
they didn't have to. Well, the city of Fayetteville came out and they spoke out to include 3 public officials, Yvonne Kinston, Charles Evans, and Antonio Jones, who I just for the I really hope that Antonio runs for District 3 again. If he does, I will do everything I can to help him get elected because I think that he probably would have been an excellent representative for our district. I know he believes in God. I think it's huge when people submit their lives to God. I think they just serve differently. But I just also like the fact that he seems to really be engaged in trying to represent the voice of the people. Because in District 3, honey, we don't want 4-year terms for our council members. We don't want that.
Yeah.
But I also gotta give again Mario his flowers because he said the same thing that we don't want that over here. We want it to go to a vote. But listen, what did it look like, Ted? What are you broke the story? Tell us what it looked like.
Well, I I have a list here of everybody who spoke, and I probably misspelled some of their names. And a total of 28 people physically showed up, and there was another former city council member, Juanita Gonzalez. She was the last speaker, but
That's all
28.
right.
Yeah, 4 people were in support of it, and a couple were from District 6, Derek Town, and then there were some of the people from District 6 who were against it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then, and of the 28, there was a couple I couldn't tell, uh, whether they said they were for it or against it, but those people said, bring it to a referendum. Let us
Right.
vote on it. So, but yeah, overwhelmingly, it was no. And I also put, some people just said no, but they said no, but still put it on a referendum so we could vote for it. So
Mm-hmm.
even people that said no, they also wanted a referendum just to, stop this.
Ted,
Now,
how many years ago was it when we had this on a referendum? How long has it
uh,
been?
2018 during the, even year
So
November
that's about
election.
5 years, right? That's
Mhm.
about 5 years. Okay, so let me ask this question, and I'm going to go back to when we were talking vote yes. How long had it been between the first time that they tried to change the composition of the council and this recent vote yes? Years.
Um, it would have been 2006 or 2007 when.
17, 16 or 17 years, right?
Mhm,
Let's just
mhm.
say 15. Let's just say 15 years. So 15 years, and we had some of the very may make a decision to put this on a ballot, even though it was just on 5 years ago. They were saying, we already did this 15 years ago. Why are we trying to do it again? The For us to change the composition of the council 15 years ago, why are we going to do it again? Now, those very same people may make a decision to counteract or contradict their own line of thinking and put something on the ballot that just 5 years ago we said overwhelmingly we don't want.
Hmm.
I just wanted to point that out. I just think the irony is just too good not to point out. It's just too good not to point out. Mr. Floyd, what do you think?
Well, as a former politician, you read the tea leaves, and there's some areas that you just stay away from if you are shrewd and wise politician. And once you read that 65%, not 51%, not 51, yeah, we talking about 65 plus. We call that a lacking.
Hmm.
So you try to stay away from those kinds of issues and serve the public because they already said no, and you're gonna bring up
Yeah.
a no. That's one strike against you as you seek for re-election, and it's
And
just.
it's almost that time.
But now I do think that if they want to do stuff, they ought to change the election from to a even year, and I think that they will have a greater voter turnout.
Hmm. Hmm.
If they
Yes.
something, if they did that, Mr. Floyd, I'd be inclined to be supportive of the people who sought reelection that actually that might make me say I will actually rock with you a little bit than I have, because that would say to me you are less concerned about keeping your job and more concerned about actually doing your job, because the
Right.
job of an elected official is to engage constituency in the process so that they may accurately reflect the will of their constituency while making policy and governing. That is the job of an elected official. And that would say to me, you're really trying to do that. I'm going to turn my camera off because I've got to go get my charger. But you guys, so listen, talking about is let's talk about these school vouchers, because Mr. Floyd, you made mention of the fact that in County, where are we at with school vouchers?
Well, for the first, believe it or not, we lead in something. The first time, long time, you know, we we have more we have more parents in Cumberland County, some 2,000 versus 1,600 in Mecklenburg County
Right.
and 1,500 in Wake County. So Ted, we really lead in something for vouchers, which some people like and some people dislike. But many that parent should have the right to place to have the best education for his or her that they can receive. Every child can't learn in a public setting. They just can't do it.
And I don't really think that public schools are set up to teach anymore. And let me tell you why I say that. As somebody who still has children in that are school aged, as somebody who also spent a significant amount of time in the classroom, both volunteering and teaching as a substitute teacher, our schools, our public schools, are no longer set up to teach. They're set up to modify and correct behavior.
But
Because
see,
if you go into a classroom, and I don't mean every classroom, but I mean the vast majority of classrooms, teachers are dealing more with behavior than with the academics of instruction.
but teach now let's look at it now. Our public school system are educating the best that you send them. That's what they're doing. They're taking what they
and they don't
have.
have the resources, and they don't have the backing to be. And let me say this, because I'm not, when I say they don't have the resources, I'm not advocating against vouchers, because I think vouchers are genius and they should exist. But what I'm saying is they don't. When I say they don't have the resources, like, listen, in a city like Fayetteville, where we have the population of black students in the schools that we have, especially black male students, a good resource in a public school is a black male teacher. And when I say black male teacher, I mean black, and I'm gonna say this, and I don't care who gets mad. I mean black heterosexual male teacher,
Mm-hmm.
because black boys they respond differently to black men than they do any other type of person, especially somebody who comes in, shows them concern, shows them compassion, shows them discipline. There's a different response. And when you look at the number of black boys being suspended, expelled, moved to alternative school, that is indicative of the fact that we need black heterosexual men in the classroom as leaders to show these boys, because again, it's behavior. We're dealing with behavior, to show these how to be responsible men and to give support to the rest of the educators in this setting to help resolve some issues that we're seeing academically and behavior.
When
What
you
is
say
missing, Mr.
resources, what are
Floyd?
you speaking of? What are
Say
you
again.
speaking of? When you say resources,
Human resources. I'm talking about the people, the resources of the people. We need men to enter into the academic field. We need men in instruction, because now go into a school, go into any school. That is the one demographic that is lacking the most, is the black male heterosexual teacher. It's lacking. Look, listen, you said they are educating the best that they get. You are absolutely right, because the family is broken. And so a lot of the kids that are going into the school, Mr. Floyd, they're coming out of single parent households. And what do those single parent households typically look like? If you got a family with 3 kids in them and they're coming out of a single family household, black or white, who is the adult that's usually in that house?
that is the female, and I give the female the utmost the utmost credit for
Because we're
raising
doing the best we
them,
can.
and they're doing a marvelous job of doing state and what the county is doing is providing a
It
lot
ain't, we
of
can't.
resources.
We
Well,
can't
financial
marvelous
resources.
job doing that. We can't. It's impossible, because the nature, and I know, again, I know people in this society that we live in, no, a lot of people don't like to hear this out loud. I'm saying the quiet part out loud. But the truth of the matter is, the family unit was supposed to be a man and a woman raising their kids together, because you needed somebody to discipline and you needed somebody to nurture. You needed somebody to go out and work and make a living, and somebody to take care of the household. That's the structure that supports a healthy family structure. If you got a woman, I was a single mom with 2 daughters. I had to be the nurturer, the disciplinarian. I had to be the breadwinner, and I had to be the one to take care of the household. That leaves very little time to really be able to engage with your children. It's humanly almost impossible. It's almost impossible. And I was fortunate. I had daughters. I was very fortunate, because when you have boys, a woman, by nature of the fact that she is a woman, cannot teach a boy how to be a man. We can
Yeah.
teach them how to be what we think a man should be, but we
Mm-hmm.
can't teach them that.
Yeah. I'm a unicorn also. Since my daughter and son,
Single dad.
a single dad from preschool, kindergarten, all the way through high school. And you're right. You know, I would have to rely on my sister many, many times. In relationship to my daughter, when she had questions, and so my
Right.
sister had 3 daughters. But you're right. You go to work, you drop them off at daycare, go to work, come off of work, then you got to do dinner, you got to help them with their homework, and then it's time to go to bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a routine. Yeah, it's a routine.
But I mean, that's where the voucher program comes in there. When you look at, and many of these individuals live in areas where the grading system is C or below.
That's right.
The
Failing
school
schools.
system. So if that parent can fix that child a peanut butter sandwich, put that kid on public transit, or drop that kid off at school where he or she can get a sound basic education, I think that voucher is good. Now remember that vouchers itself provide the same amount of money that the school system provide for each child. If it's $10,000, that's what that school system, receive. Now,
Mm-hmm.
however, now if that kid go back to public school system, because he or she didn't like the voucher setting environment, I don't think that money is going to return back to that school system.
Oh, that's right. And you know what's interesting? People always say that like these classrooms need to be so technologically advanced, right? But the most advancements came from people who were educated with the chalkboard and a piece of chalk and writing and pen and paper. We have given all of these technological resources to our children in the classroom, and they're getting dumber and dumber. Like, and
I
I
tell
just
you,
wonder
not
sometimes.
to cut you off, go in
Go
the
ahead.
store, go in the store, and you give them a $20 bill, a $20 bill. That cash register would say the change back is $2.06.
Yes.
That's a problem.
Yes.
That's a problem if it does not work.
Yes.
You
Because
know,
they can't count you your change.
that's what I'm saying.
They can't count you your change. And there needs to be an overhaul of the educational system. So I'm for vouchers. Please no, I'm for them because I think that these people who the people in our community who have children who are trying to send their kids to a school that is not going to they don't have to worry about the same things that they would have to worry about if they sent them to their home school in their district. Because every school is not equal, y'all. Every
Mm-hmm.
school is not equal. That's why people were clamoring to move into the Jack Britt School District because that school was not equivalent to a school over here. It was not perceived to be equivalent. And so people were flooding that area to get their kids into those schools because all schools are not created equally. But I'll tell you, I think sometimes we just got to strip back down to the basics, pay these teachers to sit in the classroom and teach these kids reading, writing, and arithmetic, and also reasoning. Because if they can reason, they can do anything. If you can read, if you can write properly, if you can articulate, and if you can reason, and if you can do a little math, you can do anything. You can
And
do anything.
remember that teaching that you're correct. Not only do you have to be a lawyer, a doctor, but those persons who go into our school setting and come out skill, with a skill, at the end of the day, make more money than an academic person.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. That's the
That's
Okay.
truth.
Now, now
that's
he
what my
he or she
son's
got on
doing.
some blue pants and a blue shirt. But when he stops by your house to speak with you, Miss Waddell, it's $125.
Just to
He,
talk to you.
he haven't prepared your unit now. He haven't prepared your unit. He just stopped by. And you still got to
Hmm.
pay him that 125.
Absolutely. Ted, you were saying that's the case with your son?
Yeah, he's in his second year of a 4-year program to become a plumber. And he works plumbing every day. Takes classes at night to go into a journeyman and then into a full blown plumber where he could open his own business. And he's he, he's making like 24, $25 an hour, and he's only halfway through his education.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That's where
It's
the money
valuable.
is, Ted, if you don't know, Ted. That's where, because they have an unlimited amount of earning. If you're in education, then your salary is fixed at $46,000 a
That's
year,
Hmm.
right.
or 55 or $65,000.
That's
But if you
right.
have a skill set, plumbing, heating, and air, there's always going to be a toilet that need to be fixed.
Yep.
That's right.
I don't care how
And Mr.
good.
Floyd, Period. Period. It's got to be done. And Mr. Floyd, you asked me a question, and I want to reiterate this because I want to make sure that our educators and that our listeners understand exactly what I'm saying. You asked me, what are the resources? When I talk about resources, I am talking specifically about human beings that are educated in the classroom. I think these teachers need to be paid more because let me tell you something. It's not a teacher that I know that is in the classroom because it's just the best job in the world and they're making so much money. The teachers that I know, and I'll say it, with the rare exception, teachers teach because they love educating students.
Yeah.
They're not teaching because they're making so much money. They're not teaching because the job is so easy breezy. They're not teaching because they get summers off. That teachers teach because they love educating students. We need to invest in our human capital. We need to invest in these teachers. We need to stop wasting money on all of this other garbage that's going into a classroom. We need to invest in our teachers. We need to put quality counselors in these schools because these kids are coming to school with their heads really messed up by some of the stuff that their adults are.
Well,
We need to
teaching
put good.
a teacher that making $46,000 a year gross is giving from his or her net over $500 to $1,000 back each year to the school system to buy
Absolutely.
material to
Absolutely.
help that child advance. Now remember now there's a gross and then there's a net. You know, the net is
Absolutely.
always less than the gross, but they're taking
Absolutely.
that because they love what they're doing.
They love their job. Last thing that we need that I just firmly believe we need to cut out all of this testing. We need to go back to remember when we were in school. And now, Mr. Floyd, I know you said we old, but I know Ted is going to remember this. Ted, do you remember we would go to school and Monday through Thursday we would learn? And what would we do on Friday? We would take a test to see what we learned. And
Right,
then
right.
that test, yep, that test would go into a folder. That folder would go home, and our parents would see it'd be a spelling test, a math test, a language arts test. You take that test on Friday, and that way your teachers could gauge whether or not you were retaining the information. They don't do that anymore. They don't
Now
do that.
they
Now they're doing
EOGs and stuff, you know.
garbage. Get off of it.
Just remember
We are
that we're
actually,
leading in vouchers, so our community is leading some statewide.
I'm proud of that. I'm actually proud of that one. I'll take a 1 minute break. We're gonna let me decompress a little bit because about these the education of these children because I'm concerned, y'all, that because of the way things are going, we're going to be screwed when the next season of leaders come forward because if we're not giving them what they really need to be prepared to do what they're going to have to do. And that is concerning, but we will take a break. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to turn these cameras off, play our ad, and we'll be back. And when we come back, we're going to talk about our local delegation, the bills that have been filed, the governor's recommended budget, the abortion bill, and Supreme Court opinion. So make sure you come right back.
Are you looking for a real estate agent who knows the Fayetteville community inside and out? Look no further, as your hometown girl LaTanya has extensive experience of our area and experience in its real estate market. LaTanya delivers results. At LMR Realty Group, we all understand that buying or selling a home can be a stressful experience. When you partner with us, you control the decisions while LMR Realty Group guides the process, and together, we'll work from contract to close with ease. Whether you're a first-time buyer, downsizing, or expanding your investment portfolio, LMR Realty Group has got you covered. As a bonus, if you call and go under contract by March 31st, LMR Realty Group can cover up to $400 for a home warranty on a resale property with all appliances included. Some exclusions apply. Don't wait. Call 910-574-8225 or visit ELLIMARRealtyGroup.com to get you started. Let's make your dream home a reality with LMR Realty Group.
All right. Welcome back to the Up Zone. We're under simple. We are your three hosts, Mr. Elmer Floyd, Mr. Ted Moan, and myself, Tisha S. Waddell. I want to ask you guys, and I asked you about it before we got started today, Mr. Floyd, and I just got to this. We were talking about the news report of the death of the 18-year-old boy who was shot by the SBI agent in Apex for allegedly shoplifting. Let me just ask this question because I just it's just not sitting right with me. And y'all know I'm the one who will always say, do not make a snap decision without all of the information. And so I'm not making a judgment, but I do have some questions. And my
Mhm.
question is, have you guys read any report that said that this SBI agent had intel or had a concern that the young man was armed?
Um, WRAL released some of the 911 calls,
Mm-hmm.
and I just saw an update this morning, and one of them said, "Hey, they're on the parking lot, fighting, on the ground, and then there was a gun, and then there was two shots, and when the police came, they supposedly there was a gun next to the person, in the parking lot that was shot. So they're still investigating, and other initial reports, basically said that they stole some ammunition, come running out of
Right.
the store. So I don't know if a store employee was, running after them, and the SBI guy was just there at the time and tackled them, and they started fighting. That hasn't come out. So there's conflicting reports right now. So I don't want to make a judgment
A snap.
yet. But I don't know what all the facts are. But so there's
Right.
conflicting reports.
And the one fact that I'm going to be looking at, Mr. Moan, is the one that tells us whether or not there was any indication that the CIA operating off of that there was threat of danger, because you do the class, if you've ever taken any kind of gun safety course, you are taught that you are not permitted to brandish your weapon unless an
Hmm.
imminent threat of danger. And I just want to know, was this of and the sentence was, or is this a case where the threat of imminent danger or the perception
Each
of the threat
as
of imminent danger?
each as an African American male, if you're walking out, I pray that you're walking out with your hands up in the air, that you don't have a cell phone, or do you have a gun on your side? Okay, that allow you to carry that weapon, because the thing that is going to happen to the African American male, even with his cell phone in a holster, the key word, Miss Waddell, appear.
Yeah,
That
and
it
this young man,
appears,
and I guess we can
it
just say that
appears
this is
that you was going for your weapon. Now
for
remind
your
what I'm saying, that
weapon.
as an African American male, if you walk out there, 9 times out of 10, if you carrying a weapon that you have a permit to carry, one of our local funeral homes will have you.
Mm.
And Mr. Flood, and I guess what you're saying may hold applicable for the Hispanic community also, because this young man was not African American. He was a brown guy. He was Hispanic.
I'm just
I will
saying,
say
as an
this.
African American male, I mean, I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. I understand what you and T are talking about. But as an African American male, you walking around in this community, this nation at this time with
With a gun on your hip.
with a gun on your side. I mean, I know it looked real macho and all that, but are walking around. Most likely, that officer is going to say it appeared when you got out that car and turned around and approached him with your hands up in the air. It appeared
Do
that
we
you was
know if
going
the
for your
SBI agent, do we know the ethnicity of the SBI agent? Have we seen any pictures or
no, but my
Ted?
thing, no, we have not. And like
Mm.
Ted said, don't want to pre-draw. But
Right.
my suggestion is to any African American male, that is in that kind of environment or any kind of environment related to by a police officer or a suggestion recommendation by a police officer, whatever it may be, is that be prepared to come.
So
Mhm.
yeah, my condolences to this family, man. And I think people don't have no, like, you sometimes you put yourself in a situation where you pay the ultimate price, which is your life. And most certainly nobody wants to see that happen. But I will be watching this. This is something that I'm intrigued to continue to pay attention to. Let's talk about these local delegation bills that have been. What kind of bills are we seeing come out of our? Let's, because see, there was a meeting of the minds. All of the agencies that support Cumberland County converged into one place, and there was a conversation about what the needs of the community from our local politicians, state delegates. What come of that conversation?
Well, Mr. Floyd asked me to look at what our local delegation filed specifically for Cumberland County, and I looked at each of our four House of Representatives,
Let's name them,
and
Ted, for the people who need to know who they are again.
okay, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lucas, um, I mean, Mrs. Jackson. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. Mrs.
That's all
Jackson,
right.
Mr. Lucas, Mr. Smith, and Mrs. Wheatley.
Mhm.
And I could not find any, bills for specific amounts of money, for, for Cumberland County, except for Mr. Lucas. And all four of them also signed on as primary sponsors for $2.5 million, which is Fayetteville State University carryover funds from the previous
Mhm.
year. But any actual new initiatives, it was Spring Lakes for software, wastewater for 3 millions, and parks development and maintenance for 2 million. Now,
Mhm.
all of our local delegation sponsored many other bills, but they were more impacted statewide issues and not just Fayetteville, Cumberland County, Spring Lake, Hope Mills, and stuff like that.
Okay. So what we are seeing is Luke Lake, but we're not really seeing Wheatley, Smith, or Jackson exert any effort or initiative back to um, Fayetteville in particular, because one of the things that we kept talking about was this 97 million that's needed for a new Smith High School, right? So nobody has asked for any money toward that end that we've
Well,
seen.
the House this coming Tuesday, 3 p.m. is the deadline for them to submit any additional bills. Oh, I got my camera off. I'm sorry. So we could see um, a rash of local bills come in Monday
Okay.
and Tuesday. So I don't want to say they haven't done it, because there might be some. Mr. Floyd can explain it, how a bill goes into bill drafting before it gets released and brought on to the House floor. Mr. Floyd, can you explain, like,
Well,
I
there
got an
is
idea.
there is a time that the bill must be into bill drafting.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Forgot what date that was. Is that it had to be in the bill drafting and it had to be introduced, in the chamber by that by whatever cutoff date that they have there. But I do know the crossover date is May 4th. So
Yes, sir.
whatever's introduced now and May 4th must be crossover into the Senate in order for it to have life. But if it does not meet crossover, then that is going to move forward, unless it's some kind of bill that you can add into a text amendment.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're looking at the budget process, we know that Governor Cooper has submitted his recommended budget,
The
and
governor
Yes.
then
submitted his recommended budget Now this year, which is the odd year, the House get it. So the House gets the governor's budget, and Ted and you all mentioned some time back that they set a target date for a little under $30 billion. So the governor's budget was about 33 point some odd billion. So $3 billion automatically came off the top, and then they start scrambling the eggs there, and so the House passed this budget and sent this budget and has sent this budget over to the Senate, which the Senate is going to look at that budget and then scramble those eggs on the Senate side.
Okay.
And the Senate is going to basically saying they are going to reject the House budget, and then a conferee committee is appointed, hopefully, that those 9 Democrats that sign on for the budget will probably be conferees, and their
So do
goal
you still see that rejection, Mr. Floyd, even though now the House has a supermajority and the like now that both chambers have Republican majorities, do you think we'll still see the nitpicking of the budget, or do you think it'll be a smoother process?
well, it's going to be well, there are several options. Well, let's first look at the combining of the two for a conferee committee. The governor probably won't like the budget. He may allow the budget to come into law without signing it, or he may veto the budget. But if he veto the budget, both chambers have sufficient enough votes to override the governor's budget. Plus, it had 9 members of the Democrat Party that voted for the budget. One
Okay.
thing that we advocated and we spoke about as Democrats very loud that we wanted health care coverage. Health care coverage was part of the budget, but we had 30 plus Democrats that voted against the budget because it didn't have all of the things, I'm going to use the word all of the things, that the Democrat wanted. But bear in mind, when you don't write the budget, you're not going to get what you want in the budget.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
So
we'll just have to keep watching that. How long is it going to take the a month, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months? Looking at in terms of timeline.
they're moving with deliberate speed. They want to have the budget in place by July 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it mentioned, and may mention later on, is that they're going to have to look at the redistricting. So if they don't do it by July 1, at least by the last of July, then they may operate up under this fiscal year budget. So it won't be like the state won't have a budget. You operate up under the previous year budget
Oh,
of whatever the target is, and so you will have a budget in place. Again, uh, it's gonna be sort of trickery this year because the governor wanted Medicaid. You got Medicaid, and there could be a lot of things in this budget that are not numbers. That's gonna be language,
okay.
which
Okay.
people not support.
But we should see this moving because that is they've already identified and articulated that is their desire. So
Mm-hmm.
Ted, you
Their
got an
desire is to have it in place.
Well,
I didn't hear you.
And, their desire to have it in place by July 1, which is
that's
the
what I've
Got
heard.
it.
Yeah. The one good thing that I saw was the governor's budget had about 79 million for Fayetteville State, and the House budget also has just at 79 million for Fayetteville State, and it's mostly for new construction, the H.L. Cook Building, new residential hall, and College of Education, and both of those, again, it was in the governor's budget, and it's also in the House budget that they just passed. So that's positive for Fayetteville State University.
Fayetteville State is killing it right now. The what's the name of that hotel that's over there on Rowan Street by Fowler's?
Ooh,
It's like a weekly.
yeah, like
Y'all know the one I'm
expensive.
talking about.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
even. I don't even need to know the name, but you all know where I'm talking about. Did you all know that Fayetteville State has assumed that as student housing,
No, I
and
didn't know
that
that.
because of that, there is now a full time presence, a police presence in that area, and it is really pushed out. Because if you guys remember, there was a homeless encampment that was beginning to set up in that area.
Right, right.
It's not there anymore. And I was wondering, well, how did they, like, my mind went, how'd they get rid of that? Because it was right there when you would come off of 87 to turn to go toward Fowler's, it would sit right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not there anymore. The hotel doesn't have a lot of that foot traffic that you used to see, like the just the unsavory foot traffic that you would see. It's reducing the blight, it's reducing the criminal activity. Like, I was talking to somebody at Fowler's one day, one of the employees, and they were telling me how it's just really, it has transformed the area. The fact that Fayetteville State has done that one act of assuming that as student housing. And so I know that it probably will not be a forever solution, but it is certainly, like, I'm really interested in continuing to watch how Fayetteville State is establishing themselves as a dominant player in the economic shift of the Murchison Road corridor, all the way from Rowan Street down. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just, it's exciting to see what they're doing, and I just want to see how it keeps playing out.
Well, Tish,
Mm-hmm.
you know they turned down the men's dormitory at Fayetteville State, and they got money in the last year budget to replace that dormitory. And Bryant Hall at Fayetteville State is going to be torn down, and that's where their physical fitness center and also some type of medical facility is going to be
Hmm.
there. So Fayetteville State is growing by leaps and bounds, and I'm very proud of being a graduate of Fayetteville State and
Mm-hmm.
developed this program when that we was in charge for 144 years, and our African American college got very little as it relates to growth.
Mm-hmm.
Finally seeing my institution receiving some of the economic perks.
Absolutely. And I a lot of it has been a long time in the making, but it's good to see that great leadership is establishing really great stuff in the footprint of Fayetteville State. I'm excited about
Oh
that.
yeah. Yep, yep.
Let's talk about this abortion. All across, abortion is still a hot topic. Now, this is another one that I'll get up on the soapbox about. I'm gonna try not to, because I know I went there with the public school situation. Let's talk about the abortion bill as it relates to the state of North Carolina. Again, we see supermajority in the House and the Senate of Republicans. What are we expecting to see come out of this as far as the state of North Carolina?
Well, the bill I read only had like three sponsors, and it was very restrictive. I mean, it was like almost like a heartbeat bill, you know. But I don't think the Republicans have the stomach to go that restrictive. I've heard more something like instead of 20 year months to 16 months, but not weeks. Yeah, yeah, but not down to like 8 or less weeks. You know, so so far the bill was put into one of the committees and it hasn't gone anywhere so far. Uh, and
Right.
with elections coming up next year, I just don't see North Carolina House or Senate pushing this too hard.
Hmm.
Maybe in another 2 years or so, because why would you? People are already fired up about this. Why would you just add fuel to the fire for the 2024 elections? Because that's exactly what is going to happen if they go down this road.
Yeah,
That's just
and the
my
reality.
personal.
Go ahead, Mr. Floyd.
You would see some movement on an abortion bill, and Cochran is the one that to me will be that negotiating person or that
Mhm.
factor as it relates, because the bill that Ted mentioned is just flat out nothing.
Mm-mm.
Literally
Yeah,
speaking. Okay.
it's
The second one is that the speaker, of my understanding and reading material and looking back at information, for once, he thinks that it should be at 6 weeks, and then on the Senate side, they're looking at 13 weeks. So it may be that somewhere in the middle, that North Carolina will still allow, will be an abortion state. So there, there's a Miller there that I think that she is capable of moving in order to have that bill proof that they need in order to move forward with some form of abortion. But yeah, I believe there will be one, whether it be this session or not. It depends on the timetable because, like we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of bill that's already in bill drafting that out, to try to meet that date, that
You
cutoff
know,
date.
the biggest thing for me when it comes to the decision about abortion, not only locally but nationally, is that I'm always reminded that you can legislate morality.
Right.
And because of that, I think that those of us who are believers in the Christian community most certainly in a position where abortion is concerned. Let me say this because I know that the lieutenant governor and his wife caught a lot of slack, acknowledgement of the fact that she had had an abortion, but that she was still against abortion. I believe that you can do something that you believe is wrong and fundamentally believe that it is wrong. And so I don't want to get caught up in the nuances of what would you did you do. I just want to say you cannot legislate morality. However, you can reduce the legislation on those who fundamentally disagree with it. And I'd like legislation that includes public dollars from abortion. What the timeline looks like, remove the mandate for public dollars to fund abortion. If a by their moral compass believes that abortion is a standard practice be allowed, that is their choice. If God gave all of us free will as to whether or not we serve him, most certainly free will as to whether or not we will abort a child. However, for the person who fundamentally believe that that is something that should be happening, their tax dollars should not have to be allocated to fund. I think sometimes we get so inundated in trying to make people do what we want them to do one way or the other that we lose sight of practical application of how we can legally reduce the impact to the people who are starkly opposed to the act. And that's the thing I never hear people talking about that. About okay, well, abortion's going to be legal. Pay for your own abortion.
But teach that cannot be that cannot take place in every case.
Mr. Floyd, let me say, I believe that that's a that's a point that's one of those social services points that doesn't apply to what I'm saying because I'm sweeping legislation. And whether you can afford to pay for it yourself or not, of course, there will be agencies the same way how everybody can't always afford to pay for their X or their Y or their Z, whatever that thing may be. There are agencies that pop up to which I believe would be no different in this instance. If there were a law that legislated and said public dollars are not going to go to this, to see private agencies that pop up to say, don't worry about it. As an
That's a different
example,
thing
when
because you talk about not private agency, but when you're talking about Department of Social Service and those, they receive public dollars.
those are public, exactly. So what I'm saying is Department of Social Services, from my perspective, because it's funded by our public dollars, if that's called compromise, Mr. Floyd, compromise. If this is too low, then this is just my opinion, and I'm solid on this. Getting ready to say there's a built into human capacity when people cannot afford to. There are routes and ways that are made for that to become affordable. As the example, when there were states that were saying, when all of this conversation started popping up, and there were states saying, we are not going to permit abortion. What we saw was the private sector stepping up. And I will give you an example Dick's Sporting Goods, which is why I don't shop at Dick's anymore. Dick's Sporting Goods stood up and said, no problem. If you need to have an abortion and you live in a state that does not we will pay for you to go to a state that of the private stepping up and saying, "Worry about it. If they're saying you can't use these dollars, we got you." That would be the case in general. And then I think that you remove the barrier to those people who are saying, I am fundamentally against this, because they're Christians need to understand. And I'm speaking to all the believers now. You need to understand you cannot legislate somebody to believe what you believe. You cannot force people to come into agreement with what your belief is. But you
Mm-hmm.
can say, I don't want my money to fund this. You can say that. And if that conversation started happening, I think you'd see this I think we would be seeing this all happening in a different light. And Mr. Floyd, I don't disagree that it would probably require some creative thinking, but hey, what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that, Chief. What I'm just simply saying is that quite naturally, like in all cases, there are going to be uh, an individual organization or whatever that would assist people, in having an abortion. Okay, but yet still, when you're seeing that no public dollars, I mean, that's that's up to the legislators to decide whether or not they want to go down or travel down that path. You can say it, but it's also the legislative responsibility to look at it and how it uh, uh, they might be even put in there that no private money can assist in having abortion. So
And
you
I
have to
think that
be
that would be
you have to
foolish.
be
I think that that would be foolish.
you have to look at the first of all, when you have it, you got to look at it, and then quite naturally, you have to read the language of it to see how you want to vote on it or how you want to look on it. I mean, how you want to look at it. So, is it first of all, to me, would you have one? Would you have a bill at some point in time? Yeah, but I think that it behooves the voters, the legislators, to read the language
Hmm.
that
In
within
that
it.
bill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ted, what you got before we move to our final bullet point?
Um, I think next week, Tuesday, we'll be telling for our local delegation whether any new bills will be or are in bill drafting, and we might be able to give an update on that, next week. But we have to wait until you know everything closes on Tuesday and see what bills are actually filed between now and Tuesday at 3 p.m.
Absolutely. Supreme Court opinions. Ted, this is another one you've been tracking us through. So let's talk about what we're seeing. You have a very interesting graphic. I want you to hold that until you're ready to put it up. But let's talk about what we're seeing. Mr. Floyd and Ted, what are we seeing happen at the North Carolina Supreme Court? Because they too have experienced a shift where they are dominated by Republicans, which means that we will see some more conservative opinions coming out. What are we seeing?
Yeah, Mr. Flo, we talked the other day. In 2019, the North Carolina Supreme Court had 6 Democrats and 1 Republican, and then in 2020, 2 Republicans, one, and so it went down to 4 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and then just this past November, 2 more Republicans won, and so now they have a 5-2 Republican majority. And then in 2024, Democrat Michael Morgan is up for reelection, and you know theoretically, if a Republican wins that, then it'll be a 6-1 majority Republican, which was just a 6-1 Democrat majority in 2019. But I do have a little graphic here, and I think it just popped up. And
Hmm.
so the the new Supreme Court took office, in January. They heard their first cases at January 31st and for February 1st, and a couple more. Well, and so what this chart here is on the 6th. Last week, these opinions have been published. They're on the
Hmm.
North Carolina Supreme Court, and so what I highlighted in yellow is just what we thought was going to happen. The 2 Democrats on the right side, Earls and Morgan, have been writing their
Dissenting.
dissentings, um, and down down towards the bottom, there was two cases where jury strikes were racially motivated, and the Republicans said nope, nope, nope. And Earls and Morgan did a dissent on the first one, but then it was just Justice Earls who did a dissent on the second one. So there was they kind of split on that one. But I think we're going to see more and more of this. We know the voter ID case has already been heard. The redistricting case has already been heard. And so I'm thinking we're going to see both, overturned by the Republicans, and then Justices Earls and Morgan will be dissenting again, just
Okay.
like they did now. But yeah,
What does that mean, Ted, when they dissent? Mr. Floyd and Ted, what does that mean when a justice dissents?
that means they disagree with the majority.
Okay.
So, and sometimes it's not impossible, but you have a Republican majority or a Democratic majority. You could have a Republican dissent with his own majority, or a Democrat. It doesn't happen that often,
Okay.
but so a dissenting means they disagree. So they did
And
not.
what is the significance of them writing that affirming that dissension in writing? What's the significance of that?
Typically it makes a written record, and many times there are good tidbits of information in those dissenting opinions that could potentially be used in the future, for
Got it.
either supporting an opinion or dissenting again. So, yeah, but yeah, I wasn't surprised. There was only 3 cases where I have NA on the far right, where there was no dissent. So it's
Okay.
the Republicans dissented when the Democrats had the majority. So we're seeing it just like it plays out all over the place.
Okay. And last but not least, let's talk about Anita Earl's reaction to some of some of what she's hearing during these court sessions.
Okay.
What are you seeing, Ted?
Yeah, I've got one little graphic that I'm pulling up right now. Right now, come on. And she does dissent quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched this case earlier in the year, and it should be sharing right now.
Okay.
There
There
it
it
is.
is.
Okay, yeah. So this was March 13th, when the rehearing in the Holmes versus Moore, which is a voter ID case, and towards the end of the 1 hour, court case, Judge Allen, was asking a couple questions, and you could just see through her nonverbal communication, she looked right at him, then she stared in the, in the air, then she closed her eyes and turned to the right. She just, in my opinion, she just knew that what she voted on in December 2022 is probably going to get overturned in the next month or so. But you can just watch their nonverbal communication, and she's like, oh crap, So, and she's the one that wrote the majority opinion, and so just looking at her facial expressions in that minute and a half, I think she realized, man, this is getting overturned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like you said, those facial expressions tell it all. They tell it
Oh yeah.
all. Mr. Floyd, what do you think about all of this?
Well, we went from 6-1 to 5-2. It will be a different response from this state Supreme Court going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Floyd, let me ask you this, because you have a more vast political knowledge than I do. What does the fact that it went from 6-1 to 5-2 say about the state of North Carolina politically?
Well, it helped the Republican Party because now judges have D or R. And if you look at D or R, and if you look at the six council of state, I'm sorry, 10 council of state position that run statewide.
Mhm.
Six of those positions are ours. And so, although we say that North Carolina is a purple state, but when we look at the voting record statewide, you
It's
know,
red.
it's it is red. There we lost all the appellate court judges there, and then again we switched from six now to five two, and it's
Mhm.
going to be a different opinion. It's the same way at the Supreme Court, where we see that justice is blind, how it's portrayed to us as the in public view. But when we look at the outcome of that, we really see that it's different.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just think we just have to keep watching, keep being educated, keep continue to inform ourselves so that we can really stay ahead of what is happening politically and not be behind the curveball. Ted, what do you want to leave us with today?
Just stay engaged. You'll see what your city council's doing. They have an election later this year. Filing is what, 3 months away? May, June, July. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
just stay engaged.
Mr. Floyd?
Same thing. So much good in the worst of us, and so much bad in the best of us. That who none of us to talk about the rest of us.
And that's the Gritty in the City. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow. You can listen to us wherever you get your major podcast at. We are the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple, and we will catch you next.
Mhm.